Hello, everyone. I'm Professor McCoy. Welcome back to Dragon Age Inquisition. As promised, this time, we are going to be starting the next major story DLC. That is Jaws of Hakkon, which is this whole separate region, to explore. Not quite as I don't know how to say this. Not quite as big as the descent, with all of the
Where's my apple?
the massive descent into the deep roads, finding the Titan and all that. Not exactly that, but it is far less linear, and it is very. It's a very large area. It's one of the larger areas in. It's one of the larger areas in this game. Let's see. Darn. You fire frost or lightning essences. I need essences to actually get rid of the because I have a dragon slaying rune on one of these. I don't actually want a dragon slaying rune. I'd like that to be frost. I'd like that to be frost. Let me see if I have a frost rune. Sufficiently good one. I have just a regular frost rune. Let's see what I have in my storage. I wanted to finish this up, ideally with all of my companions that I had all these Dragon Slayer runes on. Get rid of some of these that I don't really need. Because most of the time, believe it or not, we're not really fighting dragons. No, really. Spirit rune. That's staff only. Demon. Against living. I don't want to. Doesn't look nice. There's the Red Templars and Darkspawn. There are actually not very many of those in this area, so that doesn't actually help me. So just put away most of this stuff. Yeah. I just don't really need any of this. It's cool looking, but no. Okay. Like I said, I don't actually need most of this stuff to take with me, so I guess I'll just use an ordinary frost rune. That's depressing. Find anything? Can I craft any kind of a frost rune? I can craft a lightning rune. That might be okay. Fire. I do lightning. Yeah, I mean, it's a frost dragon eventually. It's a dragon eventually, but it's eventually. Nothing, very little resist lightning. So I'll just go ahead and, yeah, sure. Okay, just use the lightning. Anyway. Yes. Yes. Zappy and Bernie. Alright, cool. Could rename them Zappy and Bernie, but why would I ever do that? What do you have to... Never gonna bring Cole on, like, anything. Unfortunately, he's cool, but he just does not fit our party, and, most of the other teammates are just better. Oh, I haven't done this at all. Let's do that. Come back to that. Grenades. I don't know wither stuff. Wither stalks, huh? Need those. Still need wither stalks. All right. Okay. All right, I've done some upgrades. I'm going to stop by the garden before leaving. I'm going to plant some wither stalks, which I think I can. I think I can do that. Then we will actually go to the Frostback Basin. Frostback Basin? I think it's called the Frostback Basin. Wherever it is, wherever we are meeting these Avar barbarians.
Inquisitor.
Yes, hello.
All things in this world are finite. What one man gains, another has lost.
Witherstalk. This one too. Witherstalk. Cool. Planted.
Steal from their brothers and sisters, do harm to their livelihood and to their peace of mind.
Alright, now let's go. I don't actually remember why we do this. Like what the whole point of this is. It has something to do with uncovering history, but let's see. Let's see what it is. Prospect Basin. Okay. To Ambassador Josephine Montelier. Thank you so much.
Have the supplies reached our people in the Arbor Wilds?
I made sure of it. Too many strange plants there. We don't need stomach cramps sweeping the army.
Thank you so much for your earlier correspondence. I confess it's been difficult to get those in Orlais to take this discovery seriously in light of recent events, but I'm positive that scouting the Frostback Basin will yield historic discoveries beneficial to both the academic field and the Inquisition. As a staunch supporter, I am honored to be working in such great company on this historic occasion. Yours most sincerely, Professor Bram Kenrick, University of Orlais. It sounds familiar. Bram Kenrick, is that the guy who was Brother Genetivi's assistant guy from Dragon Age Origins? Might have been him. Anyway, she says, the University of Orlais has vouched for Professor Kenrick. If he says there's something worthwhile in Frostback Basin, we should investigate. Okay, so yeah, it is. It's just purely academic. Which, don't get me wrong, that's exactly my kind of thing. We scouted the region and set up camp. Professor Kenrick has the scouts gathering anything they can find. So far, we've uncovered a lot of old buckles. Hopefully this yields something more exciting. Anyone who comes here should be ready for hostile wildlife and angry Avar. This place is dangerous. Scout Harding. Let's go. Let's bring Derek. Dorian for now. Blackwall. Yeah. Yeah, that'll do. A scholarly expedition. Very much in the vein of very Indiana Jonesy, at least to start with this. It goes in all sorts of different directions, this quest does, and I actually really do like this region. A lot of the stuff going on here. It's interesting exploring some of the weird minority cultures in Thedas. Not everyone is an Andrastian or an elf or a Inari. That's it.
Good to see you again, Inquisitor. Allow me to introduce Professor
Dwarf,
Bram
right? Forgot about them.
He's the reason we're out here.
I always forget about dwarves.
Pleasure to meet you, Your Worship.
Professor Kenrick teaches at the University of Orlais.
I came on an exchange program from Starkhaven. While in Val Royeaux, I've found something incredible. After 800 years, we may be able to determine the final resting place of the last Inquisitor.
Oh. That's what this is about. Okay, now okay, it's all coming back. Inquisitor Emerid, all this. Okay, cool. Also, I like this guy already. He's the first of all, he's got a fantastic accent, love it. But he's also the traveling historical scholar who is obsessive about his own little projects and hoping that they're actually interesting to other people. Man of my own heart.
The texts say that Inquisitor Emeridon was a dragon hunter who vanished on his last expedition.
Yes, precisely. I see you've read Lautrec's Precursors to the Chantry. Inquisitor Emeridon stepped down shortly before the Nevarran Accord brought the Seekers of Truth into the Chantry. He hunted demons, dragons, and dangerous apostates in a time before Templars even existed.
I'm all for history if it means tracking down the equipment of a famous demon hunter.
If the last Inquisitor has been missing for 800 years, it's only fitting that today's Inquisition help find him.
Your scouts have gathered artifacts from the area. They may help us discover what Inquisitor Emeridon was doing.
I have news as well. We've encountered hostile Avar to the north. They call themselves the Jaws of Hakkon. There's also an Avar hold to the east. Unlike the Jaws of Hakkon, they've been friendly so far.
The Jaws of Hakkon?
They're hostile Avar who attack any Inquisition agents or researchers who get close. We've sent soldiers for defense, but the Hakkonites are cunning, merciless, and know the basin better than we do. I'm afraid our men will not be able to hold out long.
Something about this, something about Dragon Age in general. I kind of really like the time scaling. It feels short if you're used to traditional high fantasy, where everything is thousands of years or whatever. But realistically, it's not. It's not actually that short, and it actually makes sense that they would be where they are technologically. Oh gosh, technologically and culturally, given the events and given the various catastrophes, what with the blights and what with the various wars and all of that. Because in a lot of you find this in a lot of medieval settings, a lot of medieval fantasy settings that take place, things happen over the course of thousands of years, and it's odd that society doesn't change over those thousands of years. Part of that is mythopoetic, right? Some of that's mythopoetic because to have, say, an ancestral weapon. This was my great-grandfather's sword. He wielded it in the battle of so-and-so against such and such. Right? In order to have something like that, that means that the weapons technology has not changed in 150 years. Or whatever. 100 years, or however long. Which, in real history, is not the case. If you used your great-grandfather's sword, your ancestor's blade, you would either have needed to reforge it using modern technology, or you're going to be using antiquated weapons. Like, extremely antiquated weapons. It's like using an M1 Garand on a modern battlefield. I mean, sure, it was cutting-edge technology 100 years ago. But it's been 100 years. You know? And the same actually applied to the medieval period, but people don't really notice that. People don't recognize that so much. And sure, the time frames were a little bit further. You could go at least, a few decades perfectly reasonably, having roughly the same, at least weapons technology. Weapons and armor more or less as well. But more than 100 or 200 years, you're going to be completely obsolete on the modern battlefield. And, I think that this condensing basically the Chantry's history into 800 years or so, it makes sense. It actually fits properly with what we'd expect from a historical standpoint. Some of the worst culprits of the opposite of this are something like Mass Effect, where every 50,000 years, almost on the dot, civilization suddenly starts to flourish for 1 or 2,000. interstellar civilization, and then the Reapers show up. Oh, jeez. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. But even Dungeons and Dragons, most of the D&D settings are kind of have problems with this, and their problems kind of go the other way because they have races, elves most notably, but dwarves as well, who can live for hundreds of years, some of them thousands, and yet there are civilizations that don't last nearly that long, which seems bizarre. That elven empires can rise and fall within a comfortable elven lifespan of 500 or 600 years, living alongside human civilizations, whereas humans live 70 or 80, which it's very, very strange in a context like that to have these different species, different races, different people groups with vastly different lifespans. Which is also, I think, something that Dragon Age does interestingly well. Their elves don't live exceptionally long. Anymore, at least. Not since the fall of Arlothan. So it's I think that is something that this setting does actually quite well, is the sort of the historical contextualization of everything. This does actually, I think, quite well. Now...
I should go.
Goodbye then.
I will add, though, that the sort of progenitor of modern fantasy, that is Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, has something like this problem of thousands upon thousands of years of history. But there's a reason for it, and it's primarily, well, there's two reasons for it. One is that elves live forever, literally forever. It's not like they live 1,000 years, or they live significantly longer than human beings, or anything like that. No, they live very literally forever. Which is a long time, and a lot can happen in forever. But because so much can happen in forever, part of that means that elven civilizations are set apart, very significantly set apart from human civilizations, and even from dwarven civilizations. Even the dwarves can, again, comfortably live 1,000 years or more in Tolkien. But the other reason as well is that the civilizations that we see in the Third Age, in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, are living in shadows. They're living in the shadows of what once was the ancient times were the better times in Tolkien. The First Age under the sun, when the elven kingdoms of Eregion and Gondolin and even Lindon, which is sort of in severe decline at the time of The Lord of the Rings, all of those are thousands of years past. And which is why in The Lord of the Rings, even in Peter Jackson's depictions as well, why you see this kind of civilization building and thriving in ruins, amidst ruins, which is so incredibly European. It's so incredibly medieval European, because you see in medieval European culture, you see this this kind of instinct that things were greater before. We are living in the shadow of great civilizations, most notably Rome. And it's because it's very easy to mistake these grandiose structures like the Colosseums and such for everyday structures. It was easy to think that was just sort of how everything was at the time, even though we now know archaeologically that was not the case. It's easy to make that mistake when you're living among it. Think, wow, the people used to do this, and look at us now. Even though a lot of architectural technologies and such were far, far more advanced in the Middle Ages than they ever were under Rome. At least some. Some things were lost, but a lot more was gained. There were a lot of things that the medievals could do, especially by the 12th, 13th centuries, that the Romans never could. But the point being is that this sort of cultural sensibility that everything is, that we are in a time of shadow, of decline, That is 100% Tolkien. And that's how he makes these long time scales actually work from a narrative standpoint. Because he says thousands and thousands of years ago, there were these grand civilizations, whether they were elven or human or both. Both in the case of, Numenor and their allies. Without having to worry about, well, why haven't we advanced past that? He doesn't have a progressive view of history. He has a holding on to what we can view of history. It's a kind of conservative view. And it's a very medieval view. Let's see. From Dr. Kenrick, or Professor Kenrick, whatever. I know there's a difference. I'm professor, not doctor. I get it. Forgive me. The requested supplies have been sent to your current location from the university, including, a bunch of stuff. Also, I fed that fish, but I'm not talking to it for you. Professor Cheval Laurent. Why won't you talk to his pet fish? He needs someone to talk to, his pet fish. It's very important. A baffled note. A note affixed to a book entitled Sur l'affaire Vernet de Res. Victory and Dominion. I think it's de Res. It might be de Ret. Lady Harding, I could use the opinion of an expert. Though impressive, the victory outlined in the marked page could not have been achieved as stated. Graham Kenrick. Sure it could, if you had enough apples. Harding. Apples? Okay, now I wish some of these were expanded upon. Letter to Harding. My darling Lace. Oh, that's our first name. Hope this letter finds you healthy and happy. Last week I managed to barter for maps of Ferelden or lay from Hugin, the old soldier who rents the place on Mistress Johann's farm. You remember him, don't you? Quiet man, always smoking a pipe in his chair on the porch. He wasn't using the maps anymore, so I gave him some of my jam and patched his coat in exchange for them. That's another thing, by the way. It's another thing, by the way, that Tolkien gave us in high fantasy. Pipe smoking. That was not a medieval pastime. This is obvious to anyone who knows anything about agriculture, I guess I would go so far as to say, because pipe tobacco, like tobacco, doesn't grow in the old world. It is exclusively an American, North and South American crop. And so medieval people did not have any sort of tobacco. The closest they would have ever been able to find was from India. And it was, first of all, different strains, but second of all, it was again, almost unheard of in Europe. So the whole European medieval fantasy having pipes and smoking pipes, that comes exclusively from Tolkien, who was very intentionally, very deliberately, and he even kind of laments that he had to do it, but he had to do it for aesthetic purposes, reading in his own 19th and 20th century England into his imagined past. Because he's doing mythology, not history. So I like that trope sticks. And I like that people, for Tolkienian reasons, and for no other reasons, think of pipe smoking as a medieval activity, rather than as what it really properly is, which is a Victorian activity. It's very, very, very 19th century, a little before, but it wasn't as widespread. Pipes, at least, were not as widespread until like 19th century, at least in high society. Anyway, now, whenever you tell me of your travels, I'll be able to track where you've been. I'm astounded, my darling, when I look at the weave of dotted trails I've already marked on my maps. Oh, the places your feet have touched. How far you've gone, my little Lace. I'm so, so proud of you. When I was your age, I'd only ever gone as far as Lothering. My mother never left Redcliffe. She lived and died there. And now here you are, flying so far with so much purpose. My mind can hardly comprehend it, but my heart swells. I shan't take up too much of your time. I know how busy you are. I'm looking at the frostbacks on the map as I write this, because I know you will likely be at your skyhold. Please make sure to dress warmly. I've included the recipe for your favorite turnip goat stew. A taste of home to stave off the cold mountain airs. Kisses and hugs from me and your father and mother. Oh, that's cute. Adorable. Ever tell you guys the turnip story? The time I tried to eat turnips. Stuff to do. Events. This is related to technically a Pathfinder story. I was about to say D&D. Whatever. Questions of accuracy that moved against them were halted by the light from her most assured hands. It was then that she took her own counsel in ways best not set forth here, and led the party away. It's more about American. 148 Divine, huh? Precise copy. It's removed ages ago. Again, if anyone wants me to go through these in any more detail, feel free to let me know. Stuff on Inquisitor Ameridan. He was the last of the Inquisitors before the Inquisition was disbanded. He was forced out by the Chantry, basically, but he still kept on hunting dragons with some old associates. At least we think so. Emperor Draken acknowledged the Inquisition. A powerful combatant of some sort or another. So yeah, if anybody wants me to go back through any of those in more detail, actually read.
Scout Harding has an impressive team. Her people brought back a number of artifacts.
If you need something tracked, Scout Harding is your woman.
If only it were that easy. After 800 years, we can't just look for tracks. Barring enchantment, cloth and leather will have long since rotted away. Only metal and stone remain recognizable. Complicating this are recent pieces the Avar left behind, and of course ancient pieces dating back to Tevinter. Fortunately,
Didn't realize
thanks to
Tevinter was
some
this far south.
specific buckling, I've been able to track our last Inquisitor.
Didn't realize Tevinter went this far south.
You said there were pieces dating back to Tevinter.
Yes, while it's rare to see Tevinter ruins so far
Oh,
south,
well, there you
the Imperium once had an outpost of some sort here. They might have built it as a ritual site. I'm not sure what military value it could have. In any event, it's muddled up the research slightly, but I've accounted for it.
Okay.
You lost me at buckling.
You'd think that a buckle was a buckle, but ever since people started belting on weapons, they've been adding bits. One piece here has a dragon engraving. With the alloys of the metals used, it's clearly Tevinter. While this one uses a clasp that wasn't invented until the dawn of the Olesian Empire. And when it comes to historical research, you might say we have to buckle down.
I love material archaeology like that. I had a professor in college when I took some history courses. She specialized in Roman coinage and looking at the symbology and the metallurgy and the sizing and the distribution of coins found throughout the Roman Empire, throughout Republic and Empire, looking particularly at what it said about the cities found in them, and then especially what it said about the propagandistic use of coins was one of her research projects when I was studying with her. Because coins are the one thing that the Emperor can easily send out to everyone in the Empire that they will look at. So it is a perfect way of getting everybody to have a particular impression of a particular public figure, usually the Emperor, but sometimes others as well. And so it was very much like this kind of research, that looking at the kinds of coins, was there a shape to them? Were there certain impressions on them? Were they of certain sizes? Were they cut with other metals? Because that became a thing. Inflationary policies were a thing in the Roman Empire, just like they are today. All kinds of stuff like this. You could date things. You could date finds based on the coins that were present. You could, usually it was quite easy because you could look at whose face was on it, but which, to be fair, is a hard task, but one that she was unbelievably good at and forced us to get at least okay at. But even beyond that, just looking at the symbology of it told you what they were trying to tell people. And also, sometimes there would be different coinages for different parts of the empire. at least that were distributed to different parts of the empire, usually for, again, propagandistic purposes, but that also meant that if you found coins that were, native to Asia Minor, and you found them in Gaul, then you know that there was a trade route, right? And it had to have been a relatively well-traveled trade route for there to be people who were not exchanging currency, but were taking currency from one place to another. Anyway, lots of neat stuff.
What do you have, Professor?
A lot of material history of this.
Everything so far points to the shore not far to the south. There was some sort of battle near the shoreline. They were in a hurry.
Okay.
The scouts reported an island near an Avar fishing camp, but the Avar won't say much about it.
What makes you think the last Inquisitor was fighting?
There's a clasp here common to armor links. It's clearly torn. That only happens from a heavy shearing blow, like large claws or an axe. Then there's the dagger. Silverite, with a stylized dragon pommel and an inscription reading Cordilis. That dagger had to be a gift from Cordilis Dracon, first Emperor of Orlais. No one would just lose such a thing.
What can you tell me about the Avar fishing camp?
Not much. It's the friendly Avar, not these Jaws of Hakkon barbarians. According to the scouts, they wouldn't say much about the area. Likely a local superstition.
So yeah, it's all of this is so very scholarly. This is very clearly well researched in terms of how people do history.
I'll find a way to that island and see if there's anything useful there.
Excellent. I'll continue to study what's been found. With luck, we'll both find some answers. Also, one of my research assistants, Colette, was investigating an old structure to the north. I'm not certain it's related to our investigation, but it couldn't hurt to check with her.
Okay. Well, first, there's a rift nearby that I'd like to disrupt. Island. Avar. Colette. Against the Jaws of Hakkon. I'll probably do that next. So I'll start with this. Start with the rift. There's a rift right nearby. Let's go take care of that. And then fight off some of these Jaws of Hakkon. One thing I will say is that the historiography, the historiographical practices that we're seeing from Professor Kenrick here are very modern in sensibility. That is... It strikes me as a little strange. Because I tend to think, I know I've read ancient histories, I've read even pre-modern histories. Historical writing and historical research done before, there's no way of putting a hard line on it. I was going to try and give a date, but in the past, let's just say, historical research done before the present day, broadly speaking, was done differently. And in a lot of cases, that led to some undue assumptions being made, and I didn't spot any there. That seemed to me as if he was conducting historical research more or less properly, by modern standards, like I would in an academic setting. Nobody has disrupt. Nobody has any kind of dispel or anything. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Put up a barrier then, Dorian. Come on. Damn it. Did I just drive it away too far? There we go. Okay. Wow. Wow. That's a lot of stuff. Wow, that is a lot of stuff. There. Then we'll set up that camp right there on the way. Should be right nearby. Anyway, I would expect, just given the sort of, not what time period this is, but what time period this is roughly equivalent to, culturally speaking, it doesn't seem like the University of Orlais is a modern university. It's more, it's not quite a medieval university. It's closer to modern. It's probably, culturally speaking, this is something like, I don't know, maybe mid-Renaissance. At least Orlais. And so it's, I would expect the university to look a bit more like that in terms of its practices. And that means it would be more likely to fall to some of the errors that we saw in the Renaissance, or the equivalent. Because there's always various errors that we are prone to in our scholarship, and that extends to today as well. It's just different errors.
There! It's the Lowlanders!
Kill the Inquisitor!
No.
Death to her hold for Hakkon's glory!
Hello? There you are. Really? Okay.
The Jaws of Hakkon knew you. What do they have against the Inquisition?
Perhaps the friendlier Avar in the village Harding mentioned can shed some light.
That's another thing I forgot about this this DLC, along with alongside the Descent, is that the enemies are very spongy. Very spongy. You take a lot to go down. Forgot about that. The combat is going to be a tiny bit of a slog as we go through here. I think that's just a location we're supposed to landmark. Fine, but let's go do it since we're right here and it's on the map. Don't want to miss it. Excuse me. Oh. Not what I was expecting. Thought it was up. The savages speak to their gods in the cave passage. They call it the Mouth of Echoes. They light fires and feed them with green spruce and shout their questions into the deep. They say answers come to them on the last whispered echo. Superstition. We laughed. Now Razakale is silent and madness descends. I can only think, what if there are irregularities in the veil here? What if we could secure the Avar cave and bend it to our purposes? The slaves are gathering materials. We will build a shrine to the Dragon of Mystery, implant foci into the walls, cut sacred designs into the stone. The better to hear her with. You will hear her voice again, or we will die. Enter, huh? Memory saved. This be our last together, let it end in laughter. Otho. Okay. No, I'm not going to go through all this. Big old correspondence about it. About this place. Okay. Up we climb. Alright, so we definitely do need to go over there. There is a rift over here, but not where we're headed. Alright. Anyway, since we were talking a little bit about some things in the history of fantasy literature, broadly speaking. It brought up a conversation I was having on Discord with a few people just before the stream started, and we're talking a little bit about what were some of the inspirations for modern fantasy, and especially for Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, and honestly things like this as well.
Some of ours,
and
we should help.
Somebody brought up Tolkien, obviously. That, well, isn't Tolkien like an inspiration for a lot of modern fantasy? And I basically said yes, all modern fantasy. And then I realized that that's not quite accurate. Primarily because Tolkien is really responsible for about half of the elements in modern fantasy. The other half really coming from Robert E. Howard.
Thank you, sir.
Because you have the high fantasy elements of Tolkien, the very fantastical, in terms of something more like fairy, that which is very high-minded, even, I would say.
Care to play another game of cards when we get back to Skyhold Varric?
Not if it's with your crazy Tevinter rules.
Now, nobody ever died from those. Lately.
Okay, that's normal. But I would even say, right, like I said, that it's more, that the Tolkien's fantasy, high fantasy, which follows after Tolkien, is, we might say, aspirational. Not really. It's aspirational in the sense of it is something that we are looking up to. Ooh, jeez. Something that is escapist in the sense of wanting to escape this reality to see something better. Then there is the more what's usually called the sword and sorcery kind of fantasy, which is fantastical in the sense of it being usually fairly high magic. Magic is very common and very powerful. But maybe most importantly, it is not aspirational in the sense of, in terms of character virtue and such. But it may be aspirational in terms of heroism. It is the harsher virtues, if anything. If anything, and usually not even really necessarily those as virtues. And this is where you get Robert E. Howard stories, Conan the Barbarian. You've got Solomon Kane. You have, moving a little away from Robert E. Howard, but those who are influenced by him. You have Elric. I forget the author. But stories like that, which are very fantastical in that sense, but also are Those don't help me much. This gives me dexterity, so I'll just go there. They're fantastical in the sense of wow, look at this crazy world. And so we have these two elements of fantasy that I think of all of the sort of fantasy settings or fantasy literature, if you want to call it that, that is prominent today. I think Dungeons and Dragons manages to split the difference best and captures very strong elements of both. I think that something like Dragon Age is far more inspired by Tolkien. It is a high fantasy established world that operates accordingly to its rules and all that. But it still takes elements from that Robert E. Howard, the world is harsh and we must be harsh to meet it kind of
Jaws of Hakkon, fighting a demon.
approach to the world. Okay, all right.
Lieutenant Farrow, sir. We've beaten back those Hakkonite bastards. My men and I will hold here. The Hakkonites along the river still pose a threat. After this last battle, we need time to fortify and regroup.
What's the situation along the river?
Between the Hakkonites and the wildlife, this isn't the easiest place to maintain a presence. The river's the best way for the Inquisition to send supplies from Skyhold, or it would be if we could travel safely along it. The Hakkonites set up camps near the banks, and they attack anyone who gets within view.
Okay.
That will be all, Lieutenant.
Sir?
We should probably take care of some of those, huh? Let's do this first. There's a fade rift right over there. It's gonna be a threat of its own. I see it. I see the glow. Really, the spiders are back? Okay. Anyway, speaking of D&D and fantasy writing, yada yada yada, all that kind of stuff, I've also been looking through the new D&D campaign guide, the Radiant Citadel, the something Radiant Citadel, which we kind of knew was going to be, I think the technical term is woke garbage, but man, were we right. We were exceptionally right, and by garbage, I don't just want to focus on the sort of wokeism of it. I also want to focus on the nonsense, because so very much of the world building in the Radiant Citadel is absolutely, utterly ridiculous and nonsensical, just from a D&D standpoint. For example, just like I'm just going off of the first sentence, which I'm not going to quote, but I'll give you the gist, the idea that it's trying to set up. It's establishing this place called the Radiant Citadel, which is where all of these adventures sort of split off from. It is a resplendent city of peace on a mystical crystal at the heart of the deep ethereal. Okay, so hopefully you can already see a little bit of what's wrong with this. If you know anything about D&D cosmology, you already know what's wrong with this, or at least you can get a hint of it. If not, check out my video on the subject. It's one of my relatively recent ones. It was only a couple of months ago. Definitely check it out if you haven't, because this will kind of point things out and see why it'll suggest why so much of this module is so absurd and it's kind of ridiculous, and so much of it makes so little sense. Erica says if they had just doubled down on the fact that all different adventures had to do with different cultures and actually treat them respectfully in an interesting manner, it would have been great. Because none of the plots and stuff is really interesting. That is true. Yeah, that's true. Also, if they had just gone with different cultures that have been established in D&D, rather than trying so desperately to just mindlessly ape real Earth historical and current cultures. But yeah, also the actual Radiant Citadel stuff, Erica says it looks awful. It does. It is awful. It's utterly silly. So, first of all, cosmological problems. Let's begin with that, because that I think is at the root of all of the other problems. So the deep ethereal is the plane of ectoplasm. It's the ghostly plane, and the way I describe it, it is the plane of potential. If the astral plane / astral sea, whatever, the outlands at the center of which, if that is the plane of actuality and stability, the ethereal, especially the deep ethereal, is the plane of flux. Oh my god! Hang on. So you can, oops, not my, you want to donate, you can, it's right there, it's Ko-Fi. Ko-Fi.com/ProfessorMcCoy. Not that, that's my overlay. There we go. Here. See this? This is ridiculous. Look at that. Look at this. Look at this thing. Oh my god. Put that donation thing over too. So you can actually see this monstrosity. Oh, okay. Anyway, I'll fix this afterwards. But man, all right, let's give this a try, shall we? Anyway, what I was saying, right, is that the deep ethereal is the plane of pure potentiality, and I mean that in the scholastic sense of pure potentiality. What this essentially means is that that the plane of the ethereal is fundamentally, it is as close to nothing as can be had. Oh, I already made a mistake. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. Difficult. Oh, I'm running into dangerous places here. Yes! There it is. Oh my god, that was a tough one. What is that supposed to even be? Volmenos. A thunderbolt. Oh, okay. There I am. Ah, that was hard. Okay, cool. That was neat, though. Anyway. Like I was saying, that this Radiant Citadel stuff, it is in the center of the... Ooh, I'm gonna die. I didn't die. I'm surprised. Wow, I have so many hit points. Anyway, So the deep ethereal, like I said, is the realm of pure potentiality. What this means is, on the sort of, let's say, scholastic model, broadly speaking. Ow. Where'd that mage go? Anyway, so what this means is that things are in constant flux. They're as close to non-being as they possibly can be, which is why ghosts are sort of barely there. They're seen as not fully existing as they should, which is, I think, correct for spirits, pure spirits. Especially for not being too Gnostic about it. The problem is, with the Radiant Citadel, it is a big, radiant citadel. It has lots of being. It has lots of specificity. It has lots of actuality to it, rather than potentiality to it. Now, it is a bit chaotic. Hey, Bubble. It's chaotic, but it's more chaotic in the D&D sense, in the alignment sense, than it ever would be in the sort of metaphysical sense of not having stable being to it. And again, that seems to just be because they don't quite understand what they're doing with their mythology, which is typical. I think that's understandable. I'm not surprised that they don't know what they're doing with their mythology. But I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm talking specifically about the new book on the what's it called, Adventures through the Radiant Citadel or whatever. I was also saying, if you haven't seen my video on D&D cosmology. Bogfisher? Fighting this thing? Alright, fight this thing. Yeah, if you haven't seen my video on D&D cosmology, I very highly recommend it for some background on this sort of thing. Because it's really well done when it's done well. Which is a weird, kind of, seems half-assed kind of thing to say, but that is to say that the cosmology as a whole, like as such, is really well thought out. It's just this doesn't fit well within it. Because they don't understand what they're trying to write. How many spiders, man? So I would say that, so Boblin, I would say that I think Dragon Age is similar to D&D in some respects. I think that it is... Let me put it this way. I could see Dragon Age being a perfectly reasonable, perfectly suitable D&D system. Or not system, but a setting. That's a setting. I think that could make perfect sense. This would make sense as a D&D setting. However, it's not typical for most D&D settings. And I think that most D&D settings are... They tend more towards the balance of that high fantasy and swords and sorcery kind of thing. And they steer somewhat more away from the dark fantasy elements that you find in Dragon Age, because Dragon Age has a very dark fantasy element to it. It has a lot of you might say, like, the equivalent of, so what dystopian literature is for science fiction, dark fantasy is for fantasy. It is, what if the world were fantastical and wondrous, but what if we screwed it up? And what if we didn't, what if these wondrous elements had nasty side effects and were treated in a nasty way, or had negative effects, or that kind of thing. Which we get much more from, I was saying that the sort of two main sources of inspiration for fantasy literature being Tolkien and Robert E. Howard. That's much more from the Robert E. Howard school. I think D&D strikes a somewhat different balance, at least most D&D systems, and I'm most familiar with the Forgotten Realms, I'm relatively familiar with the cosmology of the Forgotten Realms in particular, which I think is, like I said, I've said this before, both in that video and elsewhere. I think that the cosmology of the Forgotten Realms is really well thought out, and it's also very. I would call it. I think I would have to call it historically realistic. It is the kind of thing which fits with a fairly medieval worldview. Fits very well with a medieval worldview. I don't know how to get across there, so I'll figure it out later. So I think there are significant differences. I think primarily in tone. I think that Dragon Age tends to be more grounded than D&D. And also a bit softer in the magic system. D&D has a fairly hard magic system just for game mechanical reasons. Like, there are certain things that you can do with magic. They're pretty specific, and it's because of spells. Now, a DM can fiddle with that, but by default, there are spells, and they do certain things, and that's how it works. That's magic for you. Beyond that, you're kind of... Magic does what the DM wants it to, but that can be a little bit game-breaking at times. So usually you don't go too crazy with magic. Magic has pretty restrictive rules. Whereas here, magic just kind of does whatever the mage wants it to, except there are dangers to it. Like dangers primarily of demons. So it's a little bit of a softer magic system. Cosmology is also very, very different. Very different. I don't want to deal with more spiders. Oh, really?
If these Hakkonites are all over the river, I can see why our people have had a hard time.
Even in the middle of nowhere, we find fanatics. Lucky us.
Well, then, what are the chances of you streaming Multiversus at some point? I'm not actually familiar with it. What is that? As you fill me in, I will I'll continue with some of the stuff I was going to say, primarily about Radiant Citadel. Like I said, I run a couple of D&D games. I'm familiar with the system. I love it in general. I really like the Forgotten Realms setting and the cosmology associated with it and all that. But at the same time, I think that a lot of the current writers I think they poorly understand what it is that they're writing. Oh. Okay, that's not good. I need her up. New game for all platforms, basically Smash Brothers with Warner Bros. Characters. Modern online infrastructure. It's not the kind of thing that I would usually stream. I typically go with more narratively focused games, so I can discuss the narrative like I'm talking about literature, like I'm talking about that sort of thing. Oh, right, there's 2 Pride Demons, 3 Pride Demons. That's cool. Do that. I mean, I say this as I'm going through a massive combat sequence of combats that keep disrupting my line of thought. But oh well. Philosophy of these hands. You say that, but I've written. I need to eventually like properly publish. But I've written an article on looking at different Eastern versus Western fencing systems, and looking at the philosophical implications of how the weapon is treated and how the techniques are learned in the various systems. Looking at the ones I'm most familiar with, which are Renaissance rapier fencing on the one hand, and Northern Chinese relatively modern kung fu. And if you actually, study the different systems and look at how they treat weapons, it demonstrates a significant distinction between, if you look at Renaissance era fencing manuals, it treats the weapon as a machine-like object, which is very different from Eastern, which especially more internal martial arts treat the weapon as part of the self. It is experiential rather than mechanical. Anyway, so yes, I've written Philosophy of These Hands, or these swords. Anyway, that's actually on my WordPress. I have that on my WordPress somewhere. Hold on. I will, I'll put it in the description. I'll put that essay in the description afterwards if you're interested in that sort of thing. I am, which is why I wrote it, but... Anyway. I need to, like I said, I need to get either that or a version of it properly published one of these days. Anyway, that aside. So the problem with Radiant Citadel. First of all, there are problems with just the writing of the cosmology. The fact that there is this Radiant Citadel and radiant radiant imagery. Oh my god, are you serious? Radiant imagery is usually associated with order, with light and order. Perfect. Not perfect, not perfect, not perfect. God, these guys. Woo! Jesus. Anyway, I need to resupply at some point. Using a lot of potions. Anyway, as I was saying, you wouldn't expect this kind of symbolism in anything associated with Shadowfell, or not the Shadowfell, sorry, with the ethereal, because the ethereal is, like I said, primarily potential. Right? It is closer to non-being. Everything that exists in the ethereal is malleable, It doesn't quite fully exist, and if it does, it doesn't yet. It's in a flux state, or in a how else would I put it? I've said potential a lot, but it's ready to be subject to change, ready to be molded. And this is why, for example, mechanically speaking, in the old Planescape books, in like 3.5 especially,
River should be a side safer
the
with
ethereal
Hackonites gone.
was a place where conjuration spells that made things temporarily, stuff that conjured objects temporarily or conjured creatures temporarily and that kind of thing, they were permanent. Their effects were permanent when cast in the ethereal, because it just grabs ectoplasm and it makes a thing, and it makes it permanently, instead of trying to make a facsimile out of sort of ambient magic, which is weaker. It's unreliable. It passes back out of being. But because there is potentiality in the ethereal, that ultimately means that there can be things can be things that they are not. That also implies that things are not. Right? And this is basically a roundabout way of explaining the scholastic doctrine of potentiality versus actuality. Which I do a little bit more in detail in that video I was talking about. In any case, though, it doesn't make sense that it is in the ethereal unless it is alien to the ethereal, which is kind of implied but never made clear. But if that is the case, if it is alien to the ethereal, then there's no reason for it to be in the ethereal, except that they want it to link up to and lead to a bunch of different locations on different parts and pieces and places of the prime material plane.
Varric? Think we can win?
You aren't asking me to give odds on our beloved Inquisitor's success.
What would that look like? 3-1?
In her favor?
After Corypheus pulled an archdemon out of his arse, are you joking?
You would actually bet against me?
Now, if I weren't here, it'd be 5-1 at least.
Brave man. We'll talk later.
Oh my god. How do I get over there? Which one? The northeast one. So that one. The closest one. I'd like to get down without dying. How do I do that? Anyway, the other issue with it is, of course, its actual writing, the actual writing of the society, which is obviously silly and ridiculous because it's a weird combination of like full communism, but with an element of mercantilism. Because they still want it to be D&D like, and they still want it to be multiculturalism, and multiculturalism is anathema to communism. If you're actually taking your communism seriously, in the least. So you can't really have both, but they desperately want to have both, so they wind up with both. So they wind up with this weird communistic mercantilist society, which, I mean, you know what those words mean. You know that it obviously makes no sense, but they have to do it anyway. They desperately want to, or they want the element of communism because it's a beautiful utopian society, and even though, like, even by their own established economic principles, which they just explicitly establish, like, you know, supplies are limited because it's such an isolated little place surrounded by the deep ethereal. They're very straightforward about the fact that there would be unbelievably catastrophic food shortages immediately, which admittedly makes it very realistic in terms of a communist society. And then also they have to involve things like representative democracy. They have to involve things like it is an incredibly chaotic society, but chaotic in the sense of, I guess I would say in the sense of just it is self-contradictory in a lot of wacky ways. Put it that way. It is highly, highly contradictory. Or self-contradictory, I should say. Oops, wrong button. Rift. I want to get back over there. Report back, right? Yeah. There's a rift over there, and then I guess I can fast travel down this way, and then go up that way, maybe, something like that. I don't know. Head down. Anyway, it's what a lot of the internet would like to. I think the technical term that is commonly used for this sort of thing is woke garbage, and it's woke insofar as it's just generally embodies leftist political values, but also it does so at the detriment of the actual storytelling, the actual world building. They make a socioeconomic system that makes no sense because it's what they want to have. And also, it's another one of those issues where I find this more and more common these days with D&D, but also with a lot of other properties, where there are other locations, let's just say in general, that could have been used and probably would have been better to use for this kind of setting, but they didn't because they wanted to come up with something new so they can mold it in their own image. And this is obviously, maybe not obviously if you don't know the lore, but this is Sigil, right? For D&D, Sigil, at least in Forgotten Realms cosmology, Sigil is the city of doors. It is at the center of the Outlands, which is the astral plane, which is the center of the astral plane. And it is, unlike the ethereal, it is essentially a place of pure actuality. Magic does not function because things are immutable there. Right? Things can't be changed or altered at a whim like they can in the ethereal. And even, for example, to go even further, gods, the power of gods is basically eliminated within and around Sigil, which could have been a really interesting, like, neutral ground kind of a location, which is kind of what they were going for this as well. They were going for a very neutral ground between different worlds kind of thing. But I wish they had done it with Sigil, because they perfectly well could have. The Sigil is right there, and it had everything that they wanted. The problem is, it is an incredibly dangerous, nasty kind of place, which is not very friendly to low-level adventurers, unless you made part of it be, I suppose. Yeah, it would, and also it doesn't fit within their sort of ideological framework. Sigil is not what they want out of an idealistic, or their kind of idealistic society. So they need to come up with something of their own. The same will go, honestly, for where I first started noticing this kind of trend was in Star Wars. Where a great recent example of this isn't what I first noticed, obviously, but a great recent example of this is, gosh, what is it? That dingy city planet that Obi-Wan goes to in the second episode of Kenobi. Why wasn't that Nar Shaddaa? Like, I can think of no reason for that not to be Nar Shaddaa. Nar Shaddaa has been talked about in canon, but it's never actually been shown. And so they can kind of do what they want with it, and what they want is what they wanted was exactly what we have in Nar Shaddaa, established in the EU. But instead, they don't want to do that because then there are restrictions. Then they have to have huts. But they have to have hut thugs at least. They have to have hut. It has to be affiliated with the huts. They have to have certain things that are there, and they don't want those kinds of restrictions on what they want to write. They want to write what they want to write. Really? But I think that that's another issue, like, it's another common writing issue that I have noticed quite a bit lately. Honestly, you kind of see it with, you kind of see it in the Rings of Power. Not really.
That didn't work.
Okay. From what we've seen of the Rings of Power, it seems like what they're trying to do is they're trying to do as much as they can of that sort of thing, of making their own stuff to play with, like making their own toys, so they don't have to play with the very, very well established toys. But also at the same time, they're just kind of running roughshod over the established toys. For example, the clearest example of running roughshod over the existing toys is Durin the Fourth and Durin the Fifth. The Rings of Power apparently made the two Durins father and son, which is a huge cultural faux pas for dwarves, Tolkien. That each Durin, each king Durin of the dwarven people is, at least the dwarves think, a reincarnation of Durin the First. And so it is impossible for there to be two living simultaneously. They have to be generations apart, in other words. Kings who are generations apart. Am I gonna have to go kill that thing? I am, aren't I? Oh, it's chasing me too. What is this? There. Okay. Jesus. Alright, now I can set up camp. Things like that, right? They don't... I would say that they are wanting to create their own new stuff so they don't have to rely on old stuff, but they're also just not really caring about old stuff anyway, so they're just kind of doing what they want. Yeah. Right. I don't know, man. Now what? Let's get to there. That means we go via here. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, that's an unfortunate trend I have been noticing in a lot of modern writing.
Rather be stationed here than in the approach.
I mean, yeah, it seems nicer here. Aside from all of the spiders and barbarians.
The Hakkonites will push back from the river.
That will put minds at ease, sir. I'll arrange patrols for the area. It's no Imperial highway, but we'll see people along as safely as we can.
Alright, sounds good.
That will be all, Lieutenant.
Sir?
That is not what I think of as an elven voice, but whatever. Alright, let's go up there. Okay. How do we do that? We have to go up. At least I think. We'll see. I'll try it. See what we can do. Over there? Maybe. And then of course there's some of the silliness, like it's kind of neat. I think it's at least kind of neat that they're basing each of the adventures. There's like 14 adventures, 14, 15 adventures, something like that. And they're basing each one of them off of a real world culture, broadly speaking. And they're bringing in people like who know culture, mythology, and such. At least kind of. And I say at least kind of, having looked at a couple of them, and it's a little odd, but all right, whatever. But it's a cool concept. I kind of like it. Having gosh, excuse me. Having one book that has a bunch of adventures from vastly different cultures is kind of cool. It's kind of like one of those tours of your world. The problem is twofold. One, problem with that in particular is twofold. One, that the cultures are real world cultures, not D&D cultures. Like, there's the one that is a very obvious, the one that's a very obvious Mexican setting. Then there's one that is a very obvious Chinese setting. There's one that's a very obvious, I guess I would say American South, or maybe Caribbean. Black American, broadly speaking. South. American South, maybe Caribbean, that sort of thing. African ancestry, let's say. Broadly African American. That one. Again, it's very clear that this is American South, even from the aesthetics and everything. Same with the Chinese one. It's just China. The Mexican one is just Mexico. They're not like so many other fantastical riffs on real world cultures. They're not made fantastical. They're just, let's take this thing and put it in D&D. Take the thing that already exists and put it in D&D, which is, it feels cheap. It feels kitschy, which is exactly the opposite of what they're trying to do. They're trying to pay immense respect to these cultures, but by just kind of saying, we will take this culture and we will make a story inspired by that culture in D&D, rather than having a culture that has elements drawn from real world cultures or something like that. It just feels kitschy. It feels artificial. And honestly, it feels kind of... It feels kind of what I and a lot of other people on the right would call skin suit like, but a lot of people on the left would call cultural appropriation. It's basically just wearing the culture as if it is a costume. And I think the left and the right have problems with this. They have basically the same problem with this. We use different terms for it. That's all. And I think that we should recognize that these are kind of a problem. The other weird issue, something odd, is that some things just fit within the culture, and it works really well. Some things don't, or some things don't fit within the culture, like the module, the adventure that is very obviously inspired by Mexican culture. The main villain is Pazuzu, the Babylonian demon, or god, or demon. I don't know exactly. Really probably demon, but the Babylonian, nothing to do with Central America. Stuff like that, or like the one that is very distinctively sort of African American in its culture and aesthetic, is they have the aesthetics of it are very like early 20th century American South. There's like blue jeans, maybe early 20th, maybe late 19th, but American South. They're like blue jeans are common in a lot of the art. I'm just like, whoa, that's so out of place. It's so unbelievably out of place. In any kind of a D&D setting, because remember, this is linked with other D&D settings through the Radiant Citadel. And so it's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like I said, it doesn't, like, there isn't enough effort, I think, put into adapt things to actually make these cultures unique, and not just not just pastiches of real world cultures.
No, no, no. I cannot have guests, lowlanders, even those who don't hail from the hold.
Who are you, and why are you out here?
If I tell you, will you leave me be?
There's a first time for everything.
Hey.
I am Sigrid Gulsdotten, Augur's apprentice. I exiled myself from Stonebear Hold.
You exiled yourself?
Aye, I did. And my tongue will say no more on that.
Okay, maybe I'll ask somebody there, eventually. Doodly-doo. What's this? Shards. I'm not going to deal with that just yet. There's a camp I need to get to over there. Shard. Like I said, the shards, that's probably a thing that I will just do off stream, because my god, is it time consuming. And as we I did a little bit, I found some near the end of last stream, and man, not only is it time consuming, but also it is it's the part where this game expects you to do platforming, which it's not designed for. So tall. Look how tall they are. This is ridiculous. And they're on the ground when I'm stabbing them. But man, these are just giant people. I almost want to make a set of their armor to wear, but no, I'm not going native. Sybil doesn't go native. It was a good chantry gal, remember? Ancient culvert. Fascinating. It's very odd. That's... What? These braces for something? Are they torture racks? I have no clue. It's disturbing, though. Very to winter. Especially with all the spikes. Very to winter. So... Alright, there's nothing here. Let's move on. Nothing here for now. I'm assuming that this is maybe going to become relevant at some point. Who knows? Right down here. Camp to establish right there. Or up there, not down, I guess. Huh. Oh, there's the shard. That was easy. Okay, there we go. Up, up, up we go. And let's ignore all those spiders down there. Somebody else will take care of it. That's somebody else's problem. Now, I will also say, because I have to bring up the point of like wokeness in terms of Radiant Citadel, because it is kind of a big problem. It's that there are things like all manner of deviant sexualities, and there's all manner of there's I think 2 of the ones I've read so far, and I've read 5 of them, have non-binary characters in them, like prominent NPCs, and that seems abnormal, because if we're pointing out the fact that these are based on real-world cultures, none of those real-world cultures have anything like that concept at all. All of these concepts are very, very specifically modern Western concepts. I mean, really, they're Anglo-American concepts. there's a little bit of a French influence. But even the modern French have a horrible problem with us crazy Americans and our wacky ideologies infecting them. And I just have to say, well, they started it technically with the post-structuralist, the post-structuralist movement with Foucault, Derrida, etc. But still, it's still true that this is a very significantly American and really, I would say, Anglo-American phenomenon, Anglosphere kind of problem, a kind of cultural problem, because you don't see this in any non-Western cultures at all. You don't see what we would I think refer to as gender ideology anywhere else, especially not historically speaking. And these are sort of historical takes on historical takes on various cultures too. So that also makes it especially weird if there's gender ideology in the culture that is heavily inspired by pre-20th century Mexico. Like, no, that makes no sense. How do I get up here? Is this the best way? I hate this. Frost ones. Dead. Okay. You're fine. Barrick's fine. Don't worry. Anyway, yeah, it's just excessively weird, and it doesn't fit with what they're trying to do. And also just doesn't fit with the, in general with, I don't know, it seems very, another one of those weirdly artificial things planted in there to conform to the writer's particular, cultural and ideological sensibilities, rather than conforming to the idea of what they're trying to write, right? What they're actually trying to do. Wrap this again. That's not good. I think next camp I get to, I'm gonna have to switch out Varric for Cassandra. I need more tanks for this. There we go. Jeez. Okay. Okay, those are just shards. There's something to do here. Something new here. So let's go find that out. Where's my change party? Scout Harding has them. Oops. I want to keep Dorian. Yeah.
Did you see Scout Grandin on your way back? He should be on watch, but he's gone.
Uh-oh.
Grandin was a good friend of Jace Turbat, one of the researchers. He was killed by Hakkonites. I'm starting to worry that Grandin's gone and done something stupid. He was supposed to send word back when he reached his station, but nothing.
Uh-oh.
Keep an eye out for him, please. For me.
I helped our soldiers defend against a Hakkonite raid.
That's a relief. We've lost enough men to them.
Let's see what she's up to.
I thought we could catch up.
Of course.
Have you spoken to Kenrick much?
A bit. He's quite nice, isn't he? And clever. Really loves his books. I said hello one day while he had his nose buried in a giant tome. His shriek was a winner. He can't stop doing it now. It's too funny.
What about this place?
How do you like the Frostback Basin?
It's lovely, isn't it? At least until you step in a pile of bogfish or poo. The stuff's vile. It makes great fuel for starting fires, though, if you can tolerate the smell. Ugh. I might suggest that to the commander. It could be great for sieges.
That's a brilliant idea. I'll endorse it.
Wonderful.
Yes, let's
I'll write it up
convince
as soon as I
Cullen
get
to
back
light
to
poo on
Skyhold.
fire.
What do you think about the Avar?
When I was a little girl, a lady in our village used to tell me Avar tales. Being able to see their lives up close, it's nothing like I thought. They're very tall, aren't they? I was considering a proposal for Commander Cullen. Avar allies with dwarven archers astride their shoulders. They'd be unstoppable.
Okay. Try it. I want to see it happen.
I hear you have family in Ferelden.
Yes, my mother and father. I insisted they moved to Denerim once I signed up with the Inquisition. Ambassador Montillier tells me I should invite them to Skyhold. She thinks they'd be proud of me. But after Haven, I just can't, you know? It's not that I don't trust you or our soldiers. It's just, I just want them to be safe. And if that means they don't get to see things firsthand, that's okay. My mother likes writing letters anyway.
Nice.
They say you grew up in a village. Where did you learn how to fight? Draw a bow? All that?
Here and there. You pick things up as a little dwarf girl in a village filled with piggish Ferelden boys. I'm no artist with a blade. I just know what hurts, and what takes him down quick. Bruised a shin or two in my day, and a few, you know, other things. And archery? There was a traveling hunter who set me up with my first bow and taught me the basics. After that, I practiced on my own. On squirrels, mostly. Oh, and Heinrich from next door, but only with padded arrows.
We'll continue this another time.
Great.
Safe travels.
I like her. All right, let's see. Yeah. Should we go to the river camp, or should we just... Yeah, let's go to the river camp and then go across. That's probably the quickest way of getting there. It's already 10:40. Ah, right. Spiders. Always spiders.
Goodbye.
Okay, keep going. What? I want to fight more spiders. Too many of them. I forgot, that's one thing that actually, like, oh, cool birds. One thing that slightly annoys me, game design-wise about this area is that the spiders respawn way too quickly. Because you can't get rid of them, they're just constantly attacking you whenever you're near a river. Brief note, followed by a rough map of the area with key points marked. Grandin details are below. We need to keep to our patrols. It'll allow us the upper hand. I understand where you're coming from. Word has been sent to Jace's family. I promise you, whoever did this will face justice.
Orders for Grandin.
That was not Harding's voice. I'm sorry.
Hope he hasn't run into more trouble.
Could not have been farther from Scout Harding's voice, but sorry. Let's see, Cassandra. She actually used, yeah, she does. Lunge and slash. Further you lunge, okay, so more distance. Yeah. Use it on unsuspecting foes. I love that. That's delightful. Okay. Let's see, where are we going? Follow the path. Oh, hey. I think the shard is up there too. I hear it whispering. I hear it whispering weirdly. Oh, it's up there. Jeez. Alright, well, let's grab it while we're here, because I don't want to have to go back. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, I think there are probably little tiny bits and pieces of Radiant Citadel that I will
dagger
borrow.
bears the Inquisition crest. Could it belong to the missing scout?
Like there's a couple of little like skill test games, contests and games that are kind of cool. One of the modules that I might use. I looked it over only briefly. He might be possessed. That's great. I looked it over only briefly, but I do think I like the Chinese adventure. I don't know how else to refer to it, which is a problem, but the Chinese adventure. Like level 6-ish. I think it's like level 6. 5 or 6. It actually does look cool. The setting is actually decent. It's well put together. It is one that actually seems culturally authentic, but also at the same time it seems like it's abstracted enough almost. Maybe not quite. More than the others though. So maybe. It's a little better. It is a little bit better, I think. To the point where, yeah, I think I like it. Yeah, this is horrifyingly disturbing. However he's doing this, I don't like it. Oh, here we go. We're back here. Yeah, there he is. Let's see. Anyway, there are tiny bits and pieces of it that I might make use of here and there, but overall, probably not.
Soldier. Grandin.
Inquisitor, I've abandoned my post, haven't I? I had cause, just missing the permission part.
Harding told us about your friend Jace.
He was studying at the university. Those Hakkon bastards. Jace wasn't a soldier, he wasn't even armed. After this, he was going to show me Val Royeaux. I've never been. I thought we might... I can't let this happen.
So one thing to notice, the sword shape. See that? See the tip of the sword right there. That's stabbing into me. Just a little bit. But I know it's a little bit hard to see. I'm gonna see if I can get maybe a better angle here. Like that. Is that any better? How it does that thing that it did in Origins. They picked this back up. They've reinitiated it for a lot of basic swords in this game, where the tip, it very suddenly tapers. So there are basically these little notches that go to the point, which I don't actually understand why that would be. It seems like an incredibly inefficient design, because it would make thrusting nearly impossible. At least beyond that point, it would make thrusting very difficult beyond that point. Unless it's meant to either prevent thrusting, you're encouraged not to thrust with it, if possible. But in that case, why not just have a flat tip or a curved tip? Why have a two-edged sword anyway if you're not going to thrust with it? No. But I digress. Another possibility is that it's meant to do excessive trauma. Once it inserts and then it pushes past and there are sharpened points, it's like barbed. Maybe that seems really inefficient, an inefficient way of doing that. The other thing is it's meant to. Ooh, excuse me. It's meant to thrust, but only to a certain degree, right? To prevent you from thrusting too deep, which may be against Darkspawn, maybe, because you don't want blood splatter on you, especially not on your face. So maybe that's it. I don't know though. It seems a very strange design. There's got to be something behind that, but I don't know. I'd like somebody to tell me what the hell is with that.
I'm sorry, Grandin.
I wasn't a soldier either, not before this. I lived in the Circle. Never had the skill for combat spells, so I picked up a sword. I wanted to fight for the Inquisition.
Oh, he's a mage.
The Jaws of Hakkon almost ended
He's a spell
that
sword.
too. I was bleeding out when it saw me. It knows what I know. They will not kill more people. Not like Jace. I will protect them, Inquisitor.
It doesn't have to be this way. Release Grandin's spirit.
Release? The spirit remains because I want it to. I will protect our people. I want to fight, Inquisitor.
You're not walking out of here, demon.
If you stop me, then I cannot stop them. I won't allow it.
Oof. That's not Scout Grandin anymore. This is beefy. Well, that's what we just had discovered here. A boss fight arena that we hadn't got to yet.
Harding will inform the family of the death, if not the details.
I tusk it. Yeah, that's probably for the best. That's probably for the best. Okay, let's go. Head back.
Have you seen the plans for the new camps? Tree houses. It all sounds awful and precarious.
Don't you like the idea of tree houses?
It's a good idea, in theory. Up where the wild animals can't get us. But having solid ground so far, far below me with nothing but air in between us is just...
Who would have thought? Scout Harding afraid of heights.
Dwarves, man.
Me? No. No. I'm not afraid. Who's afraid? No one's afraid. I love being up high. Lovely views, fresh air, birds flying at my head. Yeah. I'm a little uncomfortable with heights. Don't tell anyone.
How do you deal with Skyhold?
I've news about Scout
I don't-
Grandin.
Maker. Don't tell me. He's dead, isn't he?
Worse.
Yes, he is dead.
Another one gone. Just like that. You never get used to it, do you? Maker. I'll miss him. The boy was great company. Terrible jokes, but that was a part of his charm. You know?
I should go.
Goodbye then.
Where to next? Did this. No, I didn't. There's another Astrarium, and it's right near there, so let's go there. And then we'll head east. See about talking with those friendly Avar. Friendly barbarians. I do think I need to, at some point, read more of the Solomon Kane stories, talking about Conan, talking about barbarians, Robert E. Howard. Need to read more of the Solomon Kane stories, because, I mean, Conan's okay. I like Conan, but I love Solomon Kane. And I've read, I think it was the Marvel run, or the Dark Horse run. One of them. One of the comic runs I read all the way through, relatively recently, like last year. It's amazing. The comic renditions of a lot of the original Robert E. Howard stories are so well done. They're all mostly black and white. So they're more graphic novel, or even manga type of format in terms of just like it's all line art. But it's very dynamic, and the writing is from pulp. It's from short stories. The writing is actually really excellent, like character writing and the dialogue and everything. But man, it's very, very good. If you can get your hands on any of those, any of the old Solomon Kane, especially the comics, whether I mean, yes, the short stories are great, you know, but like if you can get your hands on the comics, I very highly recommend it. They're great. I have digital versions of some of the other ones that I haven't gotten around to reading, because right now I'm kind of in the middle of Lord of the Rings. I've been rereading Lord of the Rings this year or so. I started around, oh gosh, when did I start reading? Probably like March or so. I just finished The Two Towers
I take it your father
earlier this
returned
week.
to the winter, Dorian.
Let's hope so.
My father died when I was very young. I barely remember him now.
I won't say you're lucky because that's not true. But there are days.
I understand. You have my sympathy.
My copies of Lord of the Rings are the film editions, the New Line Cinema film editions, the ones that came out in tandem with the movie releases, because I first read these when the films came out, like right leading up to when the trilogy came out. I read The Fellowship right before The Fellowship came out in the theaters. Then I read The Two Towers right before Two Towers came out in the theaters. And this was when I was terrified of spiders, and I was waiting till the end of The Two Towers. I'm like, oh god, the Shelob scene is coming. Oh god, the Shelob scene is coming. I was like terrified to see that on the screen. And then the movie ends before it gets there, and I was like, wait, what? And that there was just this weird like release. I was like, oh, it's not yet. I wait another year. And then I read The Return of the King before Return of the King came out. But man, it was that was probably a fantastic way of reading them, I think. But also, I will say, the breaks between the novels, there is a reason that Return of the King is about the same length of a book, but it's almost twice the length of the film, extended editions at least, as the other two. It's not twice; it's like 1.5. And it's because they stop. Excuse me. They stop Two Towers in the films way earlier than the novel does. Because the novel stops when they are at right after they leave, or as they're leaving Faramir. The novel stops after Frodo is captured by the orcs in Cirith Ungol and Sam's trying to find him. And it stops the other storyline with the rest of the Fellowship. The Two Towers stops with the Battle of Helm's Deep and the siege of Isengard, whereas the novel stops several days later with Gandalf riding away from everyone with Pippin after he looked into the Palantir, which happens 40 minutes or more into Return to the King in the film. They cut way earlier and made Return to the King much longer in the film version than in the book version. I do think that it's they both have their merits. They really both have their merits, the stopping points. Because the stopping point in the movie, both stopping points, is on an absolute high point. Both cases. It is Frodo being sent away by Faramir to go and do his task. And it is it's that wonderful speech by Sam, which happens a little bit later in the book. It is in Two Towers, but it's a little bit later. And then it's the victory at Helm's Deep, which is just all of that whole ending sequence of the Two Towers in the film is amazing. I love that. It might be my favorite moment in the trilogy, is that ending, at least in the films, is that ending bit with those two storylines converging. But in the book, it ends on basically two cliffhangers. One with Gandalf riding to Minas Tirith with Pippin, and one with Sam trying to find Frodo, trying to get to Frodo after he's been captured by orcs. It ends on two cliffhanger moments. It ends at two declining, and then it had just declined, and then it's 2 moments of rising action. It's a very different ending, different way of dividing the books. Is it okay for me to say that I think I like the film's way of doing it better? Because I'm a sucker for a happy ending. And damn, is that a happy ending. That is so good. It is so good. And it's not supposed to be. It's the dark second act. It is the low point. Two Towers, the second in the trilogy, should be the low point part. But it's definitely not in the films. Tolkien understood that. The second act is supposed to end with a danger point. A low point for the characters, a major challenge. But the films didn't do that, because it was treated as they had to treat the Two Towers as a film, as its own film. So anyway, there was a huge difference there that I noticed at the time, and again now I have to reread. Anyway, let's see what this guy's up to.
Baron Avar Pierre d'Amotizin. I've come to consult with your soldiers on matters pertaining to natural threat. The beasts of these woods are fierce. I fear they've already claimed the life of my dear, devoted scribe.
So I can't tell whether he sounds muffled because of the mask or because of his accent. But either way, it sounds like he's talking through a mask with that has peanut butter on it. Maybe he is. Maybe it's not the accent. Maybe it's just, piece of metal in front of his face.
What are you doing out here?
Once I was content to remain in the safety of my estate. Then, with the passing of my uncle, I was obliged to join an expedition to the stranger parts of Thedas. How little of our natural world is understood. What terrors creep across the soil while we lie ignorant and ill-prepared. If you knew what I do of the common fennec, you would not sleep. From that day onward, I have studied the wilds and the beasts therein.
It reminds me of Hey Africa. Are the Fennecs scary? If you're not familiar with Hey Africa, just go to YouTube and type in Hey Africa. I'm not going to put it in the description, but I'll put it somewhere in the Discord, maybe in memes or something. Because it's one of those ancient memes of elder days of 2007 or 8. And it's just one of those things that it's one of those things that when I was in high school, we would just repeat at each other very loudly. Like lines from Anchorman or whatever. In the very early days of memes. Anyway, so one other thing about this guy that I noticed that was, I think, noteworthy is his armor. I actually really like... At first I thought it was a little weird. thought it was a little weird that he has these weird plate pieces and a gambeson. But honestly, it makes sense. It really does, because he has a full plate helmet, a full face helmet, and that is honestly the thing that you want to protect most is your head. If you're in danger at all, you want to protect your head. Then, you want to protect center mass, but that's expensive, that's hard, that's heavy. So you probably want to protect your hands. It's probably going to get hit next. And he has gauntlets. I think they're just leather gauntlets, but they're still thick, padded gauntlets. So I would consider that armor. And then something's going to go after your feet, especially if you're dealing with wild animals. Greaves. The shoulders are the only thing that are a little bit out of place, but they look nice, so I'm kind of okay with it. Like, so at first I was like, wow, that's weird that he has this weird mishmash of very light and very heavy armor. But honestly, this is exactly the way that you would wear something like a mishmash of light and heavy armor if you wanted decent protection but didn't want to add all of the extra weight of a full plate harness. Anyway, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it works better than I instinctively thought. Because instinctively I was just like, but it works. I like it.
Are my soldiers running into problems?
They face delays establishing camps due to pests of various nature. I offered to consider the matter. There is an herb mixture. Correctly placed, it could ward beasts away from their supplies. I would not presume to further involve myself in your organization's military affairs. Perhaps I might entrust these to you.
Sure.
I should go.
Make use of that. Oui. I'll see. Turn of the page, torn from an old tome. Last words uttered the wretched grin he was. What fate befell? The brother was lost with him. Though all efforts were made, he could not be revived. Below, on another hand, relations could not be found within the basin. I'm not going to go through all of this. He should be wearing a pith helmet. Which is in this game. There are pith helmets in this game. The adventurer helmet? Why is he not wearing one? He would be. Somebody like that. The wild naturalist searching through the mysterious wildlands. He definitely would be wearing a pith helmet, but he's not, and that's a little disappointing. Alright, puzzle time! Time to move my face. That's the overlay. My face. There. See? That's it. Okay, this one looks a little easier. It's not easier, but... oh gosh, that's not easier at all. Nope. Okay, yeah, I'll start here. How about this? Okay, try again. I think I got this time. I see what went wrong, at least. I can probably remedy it. Yeah, and it's got a couple of little missing ones in there, I see. Okay. I dig that. I love these puzzles. Like I have said before, I really want to steal some of these puzzles for D&D. Let's not do the shards. Let's do some of these if I pass by them, but not focus on it. Not going to go to the island. I'm going to go here. I'm going to establish a camp over there. Let's put down one of those repellents on our way. Because there should be a spot for it right over here. And then on our way over there, we'll establish a camp, then let's go and check out... we'll go and see what's up with this other camp. This other Avar camp.
I didn't think this would actually work.
Well, glad it did. Need to get up there somehow. Do that. Because there's a landmark up there we can take. Lame. Can. That way, maybe? Here. Oops. Did I just hear dragon wings? Oh, Gurgut. Got him. I don't want to do that. Why? Why are we fighting it? No, it's just a critter. Come on, let's just go. Let's do the thing and let's move on. Don't need to fight the local wildlife. Gonna anyway, though, aren't we? Yeesh. There. Whee! Oh, that did a lot more damage than I thought it would. Right. Fine. We need to level up Blackwell. More or less full up. What's this do? Ooh, the death! Taunted enemy into a frenzy. Their damage output increases over time, but so does the amount of damage they take. The effect ends if you get out of range. Am I actually going to be able to make use of that? Make good use of it? Or not? Or am I better off using these? Nah, ranged attacks. I don't want to get hit by ranged attacks. Okay. Move on. Are these Inquisition mages? Yeah, neat. This is just very pretty.
Your earlier judgment of the Seekers was unfair, Dorian.
Oh? Were they not responsible for keeping peace with the mages?
And what would you say if one judged Tevinter solely on the actions of some of its magisters and slavers? Yes, let us dismiss your homeland as not having a single redeeming quality. The Seekers failed, without question, but the situation was complex, and you well know it.
That's true. Really? Okay, fine. Misplaced that really badly. That's fine. Alright. Easy peasy. avoid the Gurgits. I don't want to have to get into another animal fight. I mean, I will, but I'd like to avoid it if possible. Bog fisher. Those are the ones that poop, I recall. I mean, I take it that means that they're predators. Just really profligate predators. Which makes sense. Bog fisher. I assume they eat fish. Which I also assume does not produce the most wonderful of smelling poo-poos. You need to die immediately. I hate these stupid things.
Someone help! Goodbye! Dead!
Where is she? Oh. I'm so glad that one can't aim at the moment. Never mind. This should do it. Yeah. Whew. Let's go find Colette. And before we do that, we have 2 more levels up to do. Cassandra, fully leveled up, more or less. Eh. Sword and shields all the way. Everything. All the passives are good. Armor when you have active guard, I like it. Oh wait, Orion. I don't use chain lightning. Maybe I should. What are these? I'm never gonna use most of these, but it's good to have just in case. Okay, now, oh right, there's this weird little basin area of spooky swampy bits with thorns everywhere. Oh my gosh, very, very thorny and spoopy. Swamp
Be
Kuldsdalton.
prepared. There's no telling what trouble we'll find down here.
Kuldsdalton. I assume Dalton means daughter. Daughter of.
Over there. She'll be overwhelmed.
Daughter of Kuld. Got him.
Still standing. That's... Oh.
You okay? Want to talk about it? Okay.
Inquisitor. Still finding it difficult to breathe.
Ah, the sword has that notch again.
Strewn across the landscape. So thank you. I'm Colette, Professor Kenrick's research assistant. I was hoping to conduct a survey of a Tevinter ruin in the hills. I may not have chosen the best route.
I don't think there's a ruin down here in this fetid, spiny swamp, but okay.
You're Kenrick's research assistant.
Maybe there is.
So that makes you a student at the University of Orlais.
It does? Why?
If I've said something wrong...
I'm sorry. That's usually asked with skepticism. The university accepts
That's why I just said, that's why I didn't say, but you're an elf.
Elven students are few.
How do you find it there?
It's not easy, but this is what I want. And I like working for Professor Kenrick.
There's a city
Elven
elf, too.
research students, where publications concerned, their work's often deemed not substantial enough for formal credit. But Kenrick cares about people who want to learn. If our research finds an audience, I know my name will be included.
I mean, being part of the et al. Is at least something from an academic publishing perspective. It's something. It's something you can put on your CV at least. Now, it's not... It's still rough not getting full proper recognition for what you've done, obviously, but... It's something. And I mean, she's currently a research assistant. She's a student, so if she gets her name included on a major publication, that's kind of a big deal. All right.
What were you hoping to find at the ruin?
The Tevinter's time here was brief, but their architecture endured, offering shelter.
There I go applying
for
modern
landmarks.
publication standards.
Ancient Avar would have encountered these structures, which certainly predate Inquisitor Emeridan. Evaluating the ruins could offer insight into the region's history, once I can get set up.
You're still going there?
I've read everything we have on Emeridan, and studied up on new excavation techniques. I won't waste this opportunity. If you've a map, I can show you my destination. If you'd be interested in the findings.
Stay safe.
I will.
Where? Let's get that, and then we'll go over here to the Avar village. Landmark to claim. Wow, cool. Dragon skull. With a bunch of crystalline eggs that I take are fake, but I could be wrong. And a lot of bones. They look like Avar, because they look human but gigantic. Ah, there's a huge... They're ginormous. Alright. Anyway. Let's go to there. This friendly Avar hold. Shall we? It might be right through here. Cool. I might be going completely the wrong direction and might need to turn around a bunch, but we'll see. Hopefully we're good. Hopefully we're good. Snorkel. That sounded like any of my children snoring. The statue of horrifyingly tortured people is a little bit off-putting. you know, they're barbarians, I guess. Hi there. May I come in? Stone Bear Hold.
Commotion?
Your climbers seem tired, Thane Sunhair. Poor hunting. Is your hold beast well?
We hunt as well as ever, Thane Harrison.
You would be safer under the shield of the Jaws of Hakkon.
Hask Fisherson has taken victory in sight of the Lady of the Skies. Parv, you owe 4 rams to Hask, not 3.
Ha! Teared his tits.
Wind, lift your oaths to the Lady of the Skies, and hand the rams over come sunrise.
May your people be as strong as your hold beast.
Something was rather sketchy about that conversation.
This is not my hold, Lowlander. I will not shed your blood here. You will face the full might of the Jaws of Hakkon soon enough.
We've heard of your arrival, Lowlanders. Come, share my fire where we might speak.
I love that mall. It is so cool.
Visitor, I am Svara Sunhair, Thane of Stone Bear Hold. You have guest welcome here. Your Inquisition has done much to heal the holes in the sky. We are grateful. You and your people have come far from the safety of the lowlands.
We have come on a mission. We have learned that the last Inquisitor may have died here hundreds of years ago. We seek his body.
Giving peace to the dead is a worthy quest. Any help we can offer is yours. Sadly, the Jaws of Hakkon will not offer so warm a welcome. You have met their Thane, Gerd Harrison. I wager you have crossed blades with the Jaws of Hakkon in the wilderness. If you would search this place for your Inquisitor's body, they will want you to pay in blood.
I'd like to know more about the Jaws of Hakkon.
They are not the first hold to take that name. All have been foolish. What would you know of them?
What do the Jaws of Hakkon believe that makes them so angry?
A wise man honors each god to its strength. Bjorn Reedbeard for fishing, Rilla of the Fireside for making babies. The Hakkonites care only for Hakkon Winter's Breath, god of war and winter. There is no evil in Hakkon. There are times to fight, but the Jaws of Hakkon care for nothing else. They raid, they fight. Eventually they die and their stories are forgotten. It is the way of things.
You said that there were earlier groups known as the Jaws of Hakkon.
Yes. Many ages ago. They thought of nothing but slaughter glory. They attacked the lowlanders. Your people fought back and destroyed them. They were fools.
What can you tell me of the people now calling themselves the Jaws of Hakkon?
They came here a few years ago, after the Blight took their hold. There was land enough for both, so we were friendly. We did not see their anger. Gerd Harrison lost too many in his hold to Darkspawn. He thought only of battle and war. To avenge a wrong is a good thing, but only a fool lights the world on fire to do it.
I will speak with you later.
Fair hunting.
Okay. Press the hold. Thane Svar Sunhair. Trying to letter to us. Okay, let's see. How do we impress the hold?
Dread of cold in the air today.
All the rams are growing thick coats. It'll be a bad winter.
Here. Hello. Ma'am. Hi. Sketches found at a meat shop. Hey, anything to buy? Oh, hey. buy all of these. Okay. Cool. Why did I do that? Oh no, the Nug is going to escape. No, Nug! I did not mean for that to happen. I'm sorry. I should not have done that.
You see the animals the Jaws of Hakkon keep? Rat things with frost dripping from their claws.
I have. Olga says it's bad magic.
Anything here? No, this is just the way out. This is, I think, technically the way we were supposed to come in, but we did not. Oh. No, well.
What did I tell you? Lowlanders from the north.
Why do they dress like that?
Because up north it's not as cold. What does she have to say
Inquisitor?
here?
When I first entered your hold, there was a climbing contest of some sort. What was that?
The test of the lady. We use it to settle disputes when it is not clear who has the right of it. There are others. For the test of the Mountain Father, you battle with verse, while those who favor you hold you aloft. The test of Hakkon is battle, with blunted weapons.
Okay, yeah.
It seems as fair a way as any to decide such matters.
In many cases, the law is clear. The tests are only for real disputes. As Thane, I may guide the gods in finding who is worthy. I decide which test will settle the dispute. I may also ask a warrior whose claim is foolish to climb with stones strapped to his back.
Okay, so basically it's a trial by ordeal, but it's basically a rigged ordeal based on the judicial system that doesn't usually involve death, unless you fall or die being stabbed by blunt weapons. But what usually doesn't involve death. I think that from what I know, I'm no anthropologist, but from what I know, they're doing a decent job of portraying an honor-based culture here. I think they're doing okay. It's very honor-based cultures, as distinct from more individualistic cultures like ours, are based primarily on social favor, and also there's this distinction. I'm trying to remember where I heard a lot about this distinction. I think it might have been a discussion Jordan Peterson was having with somebody. Gosh, if anybody can think of this, do let me know. But it was distinguishing between, shame and guilt-based socio-ethical systems, where we tend to live in a guilt-based ethical framework, where it wasn't. It was the Third Age. If I find it, I'll put it in the description and the Discord. How about that? But so there are two major frameworks of how society enforces ethical norms. There's guilt-based and there's shame-based. Guilt-based is more along the lines of, these are the rules, if you break those rules, you ought to feel guilty. And it's more personal and also more objective. More about what you have done and what you ought to feel about it. Shame-based systems of sort of societal ethical enforcement are based around social approval. And what you feel when doing something wrong is shame rather than guilt. Shame being the judgment of others, rather than guilt, which is a regret for wrongdoing. If you feel shame, it is because others have shamed you. Shame, in this sense, is an active or an active. What's the verb form that takes a direct object? Transitive. That's it. It's a transitive verb. Whereas guilt is non-transitive. It is something that I feel about myself. And And because shame-based cultures rely on this kind of social enforcement to determine what's right or wrong, and determine how these things are determined, even in a sense, they tend to be tighter-knit, high-trust societies because they have to be. Whereas guilt-based can afford to splinter up a bit, can afford to have those social ties loosen, and can afford to have people be a bit more diverse, going to be a bit more free and independent, all that kind of stuff. They can be more individualistic, in other words. And we live primarily in a guilt-based socio-ethical system. However, there are subsets within our culture which are heavily, or at least relatively, shame-based. And I think it was the Third Age, the YouTube channel. I'll try and find it. This was his primary point: is that the progressive movement is heavily shame-based, which is why we see this kind of relational aggression type of thing happening, especially on social media, where with cancellation and cancel culture and all that kind of stuff, which is basically a shame-based enforcement of ethical norms rather than a guilt-based one. And it's why there's this divide between people who cancel and people who are canceled. People who are canceled we don't tend to care what they think. We know that it's a social manipulation technique, that sort of thing. Whereas the other side, that's why the right, broadly speaking and loosely speaking, doesn't cancel per se, because we just point out what's wrong. We don't mob. We don't express a kind of social disapproval typically. There are exceptions to this, but they're minor exceptions, and they don't work in the same way. Or as effectively as people with a more shame-based that have internalized a more shame-based socio-ethical system, like the progressive. So this is why the term groomer has taken off and been so effective as a weapon of the right, is because it's employing this technique of the left. They feel it, and they feel it very harshly. And this is why they don't care that banning it by calling it homophobic, say on Reddit, because Reddit just banned the term groomer because it's apparently homophobic. They don't care that doing that is an intrinsically homophobic act. It's associating homosexuality as such with pedophilic grooming. They don't really care because they're not guilt-based, they are shame-based. So they want to hedge off this kind of social disapproval, which is gaining traction, rather than wanting to be concerned particularly with their own actions. They're more concerned with the sociocultural response to those actions. Anyway, this applies here again because what you have done is less important than how it turns out. Hear me, Avar. It's less important than how it turns out in the eyes of your people. Your hold sees you in a certain way, and if they see you as having been vindicated through one of these rituals, then you are in fact in the right. That's how you will see yourself. So there would be no reason to feel guilty at technically an untrue verdict in a case like this, because that's not the point. The point is to settle the dispute, and this is why things like trial by ordeal would not work in a guilt-based socio-ethical system. They wouldn't work as efficiently, and this is why they kind of passed out of favor in the West, at least. So anyway,
I'd like to hear more about Stonebear Hold.
We are not the largest hold, but our warriors are strong, and our singers are pretty. Words are for boasting around the fireside. You should look yourself, if you will.
The Hakkonites are attacking my people. I would welcome any assistance you could offer.
Bathing my blade in the blood of the Hakkonites would be cause for a feast for most in this hold. The Hakkonites are fools, and they have forgotten the old ways. But we have pledged peace with them. To attack with lowlanders at our side would make us oath-breakers. This is poor weather for me to ask that of my hold.
So again, this actually comes up to what I was just saying. It is in the eyes of your people. judging what she has done. And the oath breaking is an intrinsically social norm, not a strictly ethical norm. Intrinsically social, because an oath here is enforced by the social ties within a hold or a tribe and between holds. Rather than you don't see her talking about this in terms of this would be an affront to the gods, because they clearly do have a respect for the gods, but that's not the context. That's not the framing here. The framing here is, I do not want to make my people oathbreakers in their own eyes, in the eyes of each other, and in the eyes of the other holds. I think this is decently well written from a sort of culturally anthropological point of view.
I understand your concern. Is there anything I could do to help?
Among the Avar, a hold draws strength from its hold beast. They are as kin to us. When our hold beast is strong and happy, there is joy. When it sickens and dies, it is an ill omen. Our bear, Storvacker, has not been seen in days. The hold fears for her. I cannot ask the hold to break peace oaths unless Storvacker returns.
See, and that's the other thing. They're perfectly willing to do something like this if it would be seen as approved within their community. They would do something that they would otherwise see as ethical if there is a sort of cultural backing for it. That's a pretty unique thing to an honor-based culture, rather than an honor-based culture as opposed to a more individualistic one.
The way you asked us to help find Storvacker made it sound like you were willing to break your oath.
I could say that Avar hold all oaths sacred, that no true Avar would break them. It would be a good lie. Lowlanders doubtless say the same of themselves. A cunning Thane can find a hole in the tent of any promise. A place for the cold wind to sneak in. We are bone and blood. Oaths last until they are broken.
If I find your bear and you break the oath, what happens to Stonebear Hold?
Other holds share oaths with the Jaws of Hakkon. They are sworn to defend or avenge them. If the Hakkonites were friends, they would attack us. But they are friends to few. We will send offerings, trade, and gifts to pay the price of oath-breaking. The storm will pass. I do not do this lightly, Inquisitor. But the Hakkonites are tiresome.
I don't know where this is going, but let's go. Let's go.
Maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but bears and I traditionally do not get along.
You were fought bears. You lived. Good for you. Fear will keep you respectful should you find Storvacker. You will be fine.
So you're saying she's friendly? Do you have any members of the Hold searching for Storvacker?
The Hold is already fearful. A great hunt for our Hold beast would show weakness to the Hakkonites. If she were dead, the Augur would know. So the hunters watch for tracks. That is all we can do.
Okay. Again, all of this is about sort of intercultural perception.
Does Storvacker usually live in the Hold? Does she stay in a pen, or...?
Pens are for goats and
Disgusting
chickens,
noise.
not Holdkin. The Avar are free. So must be our Hold beasts. Storvacker lives in a cave near the Hold. She comes to visit if she wishes to see us. We bring her gifts of food. Not enough that she will not hunt for herself.
I'm a little confused about why I have to find a bear in order to gain the support of your tribe.
Storvacker is not a bear. She is our Hold beast. She ties us to the gods. Without her, Your Maker has turned from you, has he not? It is as that. I know more of this world than the world of spirits. Speak with our Augur if you would know more. They're our gods, not yours. For you, it is enough that Storvacker matters to us.
I will speak with you later.
Ask those in the Hold about Storvacker. They may know something they have not told me.
I don't know why they would tell me and not you, but okay.
Inquisitor,
How did you get the name Sunhair?
I was born Svara Janisdottir. For my legend mark, I once fought a battle with my hair on fire.
You lit your hair
Awesome.
on fire?
An enemy archer lit my hair on fire. I was locked shield to shield with a foe, and I had no time to douse it. It scared my foes. My hair was braided long enough that I could spare it. It stank worse than goat shit, though.
That's really badass.
I will speak with you later.
Fair hunting.
Hey. Alright, let's go. Let's go see if we can take care of this. Let's take care of the bear. Let's take care of everything else. Go down here, see what there is.
Stranger.
My friend. Friends, wherever you are, whoever you are, etc. Let's go in there in a bit. Let's see who's doing business over here. Anybody anything? No? No? Okay. No. Okay. Wow, feast hall. Wow.
You're the Inquisitor. I hear your people already sing songs of you.
How are you so well informed?
Oh, Hellstim soaks up gossip when he goes trading. He just returned from the lowlands.
Guys, get out of the fire.
I'm Fulna Hethstotton, keeper of histories, and Skald to the hold.
I've never met a Skald. Is that anything like a bard?
I suppose. Every hold has someone who sings its songs. Doesn't yours?
Fair enough.
We keep the old songs and histories, the oaths and the legend marks.
I understood all of that, except legend mark.
The Skald before me was born Gulda Elsdottir. She crafted a great new tale for the hold. It pleased the spirits. After that, we called her Gulda Gildan's Song.
So they're titles, honorifics.
Not all carry glory. My father was Heth Mule's head. He'd never let go of a quarrel.
Can you choose the legend mark for yourself?
Only if I wanted to be scorned as a child. I've only been a Skald a few years. I've not made any great feats, good or ill. Yet.
Farewell.
Okay.
Good journeys.
I kind of like that surnames are nicknames. And I mean, you don't give yourself a nickname just like you wouldn't give yourself a legend mark. So that's, again, it's another trait of a high trust honor-based society. People rely on each other more in terms of how would I put it? More in terms of social relationships like this than they do in terms of family line. You're part of your hold, not necessarily part of a family line. Yes, it's important that you are the son or daughter of so and so, but what is that? There's a rune here. Okay, where do I get Veilfire? It's weird. Runes. Plural. Hear them. Anyway, as I was saying, you are son or daughter of so-and-so, but more importantly, you are who your tribe declares you.
Be welcome, Inquisitor. Though I fear I've time for little more than a greeting. I must prepare these souls for their greater journey, particularly those who depart without the reverence due. Their way is often hardest.
I'm not familiar with Avar funerals. May I ask what proper rites entail?
When the time comes, we are given sky burials. For most, the body is laid out and prayers given. When the birds come, they carry the soul to the Lady of the Skies. The body, unneeded, is gone.
For most?
Some souls, such as Calden's, are chosen to return. The augur reads the signs at birth. It is a rare honor. In order to return, an offering is made to Korth the Mountain Father and buried beneath the body.
A piece of the soul thus remains, allowing the rest to return to this world and be reborn.
Will someone not be given proper rights?
Calden Enverson is one of the few whose soul may return. Bloodkin must make an offering to the Huntmaster, who prepares it. Or so it should be. Calden's son, Finn, has failed in this duty, but then there's you.
Me?
You're a guest of our hold. A gift from you cannot be refused. Even an offering for Calden. I cannot dictate the nature of a gift, but if my suggestion appeals to you, speak to the Huntmaster.
I should be off.
Okay.
Lady keep you.
I like that. It's a bit of, again, it's a bit of an emphasis on the importance of hospitality as well. Okay, that's fine. This is this bit I have to say is a little bit video gamey. The fact that this is, at least appears to be permanent infrastructure for a town like this. That it's a ladder to a platform with a couple of planks propped up on a outcrop of stone. I see. Okay, yeah. Alright, what have we here? Bison. Let's see what we got. Anything of use? Hmm. Saboteur's knife. It is far worse than what I'm actually wielding. Ritual breaker. That's actually pretty good. Before an amulet. Compound crossbow arms. Kind of cool. Ooh, hey. That's fine. Don't need both of those. So that. Else? No. Okay. We need to go, what is it, up there, I guess? A little more we need to do. Our Storvacher. We need to go to the Huntmaster. We need to talk to, what's his name? The kid? Was it Rin or Rit? Or whatever he was. See if we can figure out what he can, what would be a suitable offering for his father. This is where we came in. Oh, you're right. At least I think this is where we came in. In. A stone bear hold. The cute little stone bear. I love it. Hey, Finn.
Inquisitor, I'm honored by your visit. I'm Finn Finn Caldenson. Forgive me if I don't stand to greet you properly.
How were you injured?
A storm blew up a few months back. It's the worst we've seen in a while. I was helping to secure the fishing boat. Einar nearly fell in. I caught him, but the current caught me. My leg got crushed against the rocks. It hasn't set properly.
Ooh. Someone says the industrial age is going to hit Dragon Age like a ton of bricks or dragons. It's hitting some places a little bit. Dwarves are semi-industrialized because they have a lot of machinery and machining technology and such. Qunari to a degree as well, because they don't trust magic, and so they rely on machinery and that sort of thing. Their dreadnoughts are basically Ironside warships, or Ironside battleships, with black powder. then Tevinter is basically a high magic, like kingdom of empire of super mages, with like neon signs and all sorts of things, where they haven't industrialized because their technology has stagnated in favor of magic, which is, I think, a really cool dichotomy, a really common dichotomy that you find in high magic areas or settings and whatnot. Yeah, honestly, the setting is really cool. Although, I think Erica and maybe somebody else made this point last week or week before, that a lot of it is not. It is not very escapist as far as fantasy goes. I think we were talking about this last week, because I can't think of anyone or any position or any place that I would really want to live in a world like this. Because life for pretty much anybody could begin to absolutely suck at any given moment. Mages are trapped in their circles. They could be possessed by demons at any moment. Templars have a little bit more freedom, but they are also they're tied to the chantry and slowly go mad drinking lyrium. The dwarves are a dwindling kingdom who are terrified of the sky, and most peasants are just like a day away from getting wiped out by Darkspawn or by Corypheus or by rampaging mages and Templars or anything. It's a rough world to be in, but I like it because I do think there's a kind of hope in spite of all that. And most of that's found in the Chantry, through the Maker and through the Chant of Light, all that, which is... Oh, and also don't forget the elves are horrifyingly oppressed by humans most of the time. So there's that too. And the Kunari are fantasy communists who were, well, fantasy communists. This is all I need to say. Tevinter are horrifying slave empires, slavers and empire of slavers who are constantly at risk of going too far with blood magic and being possessed by demons. It's pretty grimdark, but I usually hate grimdark in my fantasy, but for some reason I kind of like this. There's something to like about it, and I think it's that glimmer of hope, that religious hope, really, from the Chantry. I think, maybe, I don't know. It could be that I just really like intricately made and realistically built worlds. It could be that too. I have a thing for world building. Eldon says that seems to be the trend with a lot of fictional works, since the more conflict and instability there is, the more story there is. That's true. And I mean, that's the thing about Tolkien is that for a lot of history there wasn't really instability and conflict, and so he can tell the story of, 4,000 years over the course of like 3 pages, most of which is genealogical. So yeah, I think you're right. Story tends to focus on moments of difficulty and conflict. So, but it's still possible, I think, to be aspirational, be escapist, even while still having an interesting story to tell. I think this one does go Dragon Age. The Dragon Age setting does go a little bit grimdark for my tastes, but there's still, I think, enough for me to latch onto.
I know about your father's burial and the offering.
I tried. I dragged myself out of this cursed bed, but the pain... I collapsed. The Huntmaster found me and dragged me back. Said we didn't need another dead man.
I'm told I can make the offering as a gift for the Hold. I'll try to do so for your father.
He won't be my father much longer.
What do you mean?
I can't make the offering. When the Sky Burial's complete, I'll lose the right to bear my father's name. Whether or not he's my father, I still love him. I would not see his soul severed from the earth, if it's meant to return. If you can make a gift of the offering, there's no way I could repay you.
How do I move this so that he's on camera, not blocked by me? Really can't.
I'll let you rest.
Lady keep you.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, if it bleeds, it leads applies to works of literature just as much as it applies to real world media. That's true. Which is not a good thing. At least not in the real world.
Or you're just wondering. Now you lowlanders see many holds, but I'll tell you, there are none finer.
I assume you go hunting yourself.
Of course I do. Who says otherwise?
No one.
I lead our hunts, Inquisitor. My leg aches. One eye can't see in the dark. And I bring more meat than anyone in the hold. Goat's piss, do I hunt?
I apologize. I was just curious.
Suppose you can't help Lowlanders' manners.
Jesus, alright.
Do you have any idea where
Think of escalating conflict.
Our hold animal's a hungry one. She might be after the game in the valley to the west. As the weather's turning, I'd not think she'd roam further.
I spoke to the woman preparing bodies for funeral. She said I might make an offering. For Calden.
How would... as a gift? Sly woman. In that case, I'll accept an offering from the hand that gives it. Tradition says the offering's made to Koth. Only creatures who touch the god's realm will do. I'll mark where some were last spotted. It'd be an unmatched gift, Lowlander. I still pity Calden's son, though. Losing his father's name.
Farewell.
Farewell.
Shame I can't do anything about that, but I don't think I can do anything about that. So I gotta do that. There is a, what I think, if I recall, is like a dueling arena thing over here. But that'll be something to do next time, because I have 3 minutes left.
Every time I think I've seen the ugliest possible of our statue, a new one turns up that surpasses my expectations.
I mean... yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll grant you that. Let's see what's up here real quick. Oh, it's just, literally just stands. Okay, it's the stands to watch. Watch people fight each other. Alright, well, anyway. Like I said, I think that's about all the time we have for this time. Looking at things. Looking at our rate of going through this game so far, it is looking a lot to me like this DLC is probably going to take like 3 weeks or so, maybe more. There's a lot to this one, so looking forward to that. We're going to be continuing doing all of this Avar stuff and all of the Jaws of Hakkon and the Frostback Basin, all of that in the next couple of weeks, and then we will be going back to the main story. I will at some point do some off-the-stream collecting of a bunch of those shards, because that is another major side plot that we'll do at some point. I think that might even be a DLC thing, I'm not sure. But we'll do that at some point as well, right around when we finish Jaws of Hakkon. So that's coming up. So far, I will also say, as of tonight, this is our longest running single game stream series on this channel so far. This is our 32nd Dragon Age Inquisition stream. That beats out Red Dead Redemption 2 at 31. So, and we're not even close to done. We've got at least 10, 15, maybe 20 more, honestly. But this is going to go a while. We might go a full year. So we'll see. Anyway, that's all I have time for tonight. So thank you all for joining me. Have a wonderful evening. I hope to see you next time. We're going to be back on Monday for more Knights of the Old Republic, and back right here next week for more Dragon Age Inquisition. If you liked what you saw, if you want to help support me, go right there. Ko-fi.com/Professor McCoy is the easiest and simplest way of doing that. Send me a message, and it's managed through PayPal and all that. I appreciate every second of it. So, thank you all once more, and I hope to see you all next time. Have a good night.